6. Okay, so we have 6 people of the committee here, so I'll call to order at 6 p.m. Let's see, Representative Flax, Gauthier, Cassiere, Rusk, and Hanscom present. Any communication or reports? Hold on a second. Representative Hanscom?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you get a link that works?
No, I didn't. I have gone through all of my emails through like September and beyond and before, and there's no link. I've never been able to accomplish getting to any link. So if someone could just send it to me, I would be very grateful.
Okay. I did just send one about 15 minutes ago.
Are you sending it to my regular email address?
Yep.
Okay.
Is there another one that would be better?
Just the Otonita email address, but and it's a link to a Google Doc, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't gotten any. It's just so weird.
All right. I just sent you another one right now.
Okay.
Autumn, is it otonita@yahoo.com?
Yeah.
I'll try to send it too. Maybe you're
Okay.
getting blocked for some reason from,
Oh, maybe.
or maybe,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
See if you get that one.
All right. Thanks. All right, nothing yet, but I'll let you guys know. We can move on.
Okay. All right. Well, how about the minutes? Everyone got the minutes that came through, probably from my email. I don't think one came through with the agenda, but we got the minutes from the October 14th meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
All right. Do we have a second?
Cassiere will second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Seeing no discussion, I'll take a vote to approve the minutes of October 14th. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Oh. Seeing none, motion passes. All right, so new business, discussion of the draft. Has everyone had a chance or has been keeping track of the progress on it? Has anyone not? Or I guess we can just basically take it section by section. Open to any suggestion. Representative Rusk, in your experience, what's the best way to proceed with this sort of thing?
I would suggest we start, well, we have two options. We could start from the beginning, or I would start with the committee consensus and recommendations, because I think that's kind of where it starts, kind of getting into the meat of what we're recommending.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody's in agreement with that.
Okay,
I agree.
Representative Gauthier there. Yep. What was that?
I agree with Representative Rusk.
Okay, down to consensus then.
I apologize. My computer got waterlogged today, so I've got to figure out how to pull this up on another computer in our house.
Gotcha.
Bear with me, but I am listening in.
All right.
I think a number of us are on multiple computers right now.
Yeah, thankfully my
Can we
iPad
start
is.
with, can we
Mhm.
start with the first consensus goal?
Sure.
Okay, so it says our first consensus goal is to create a civilian review and oversight board.
Mm-hmm.
Does everybody agree with that?
No, and that was, sorry, this is Representative Gauthier. So I noticed that too, and my understanding of it is that we aren't recommending a civilian oversight and review board as it is defined earlier in the report, because it goes on later to describe it specifically as PAC style, and then that, the benefit of the doubt, Chairman Thomas, please correct me, but the intention is to have a PAC style, and we just need to change the specific language of that first line, correct?
Yeah, I guess we can change the language there to say instead of review and oversight board, you can do like right here we go.
Sorry, I don't mean to jump in here. This is Representative Cassiere. Perhaps we're looking to say something to the effect of provide a gap or provide a line of communication between the police department and the community.
Representative Gauthier here again. I think per the definitions that are laid out in the report, what we wanted to say was actually a police and community collaborative group.
This is Representative Richards. I would just say we should probably vote on what we want to recommend before we recommend it.
Good point.
I thought we already, sorry, this is Rep Gauthier. I thought we already voted to recommend a PAC style group, and this is just workshopping the language in the actual report.
Right. So the problem here is that we got two sections. We got goals and recommendations. So I guess, yeah, and that's my mistake on the goals section. I kind of copy pasted a sentence without really thinking critically about that opening sentence in the goals section. The goal would be one thing that is our overall goal as a body. And then what we actually recommend the action taken. So there could be a slight difference there.
And I do recall the vote regarding like the PAC style type of committee.
Mhm.
So if we wanted to add anything to that, like a board, that it would be something that we would need to vote on. That was what I was trying to bring up.
Got it.
This is Representative Cassiere. I agree. And I think perhaps we should say that our goal was to research civilian review boards, because that really was our task, was research and not really so much recommendations.
Mhm.
Representative Gauthier, I agree with Cassiere and would promote that recommendation.
This is Representative Rusk. I think that's definitely more of what our goal was in the beginning.
Agreed.
I concur too.
All right, so I'm getting a strong consensus for that language. Any objections to that? Okay, so Representative Gauthier and Cassiere, could you just kind of say what you said before? Or one of you guys want to take lead on that? To research and what?
To research civilian review boards.
Civilian review and oversight models?
Sure.
Okay.
And I would say something to the effect of bridging the gap in communication between, because we want to also talk about how we looked into a PAC style group too. So something between bridging the gap between the community and local law enforcement. If everyone agrees, of course.
This is Representative Richards. I think that was a good recommendations, Representative Cassiere. And I wonder, Representative Thomas, if you'd be able to share your screen so we could all be looking at the same thing and the changes as they're happening. It's just very hard to go back and forth with things. I don't have the two computer advantage.
Understood. Yeah, let's try that. I didn't have, actually, I was trying not to get in that jam. So I'm doing the editing on my iPad. So I don't have the same screen on my computer. Let me see what I can do here.
Sorry, I can share it if you, I mean, if it's shareable, I can share it.
Yeah, because it's a live document. So any edits I make, you'll see on screen. Can you share?
Sure.
Representative?
Just gotta find the right one. Bear with me. Can you guys see it?
Yes. I can see it.
Yes, we can all see it. Thank you, Representative Flax.
Yes, thank you.
Got it.
Representative Gauthier here, just for like a grammar and consistency reason, I'm going to remove the periods after the bullet points on 3, 4, and 5.
That's fine. Okay, so let's see. To research civilian review and oversight models available to Groton that would serve as a better bridge of communication between the police department and the community in an effort to ensure fair and just treatment for the citizens and officers in the town of Groton. Oops.
Representative Gauthier here, I think we can put a period after town of Groton.
Yep.
Otherwise it runs on a bit. And I
Yep.
think actually the clause, regardless whoever may be serving, can just be stricken,
Agreed.
struck, whatever it is.
Yeah.
This is Representative Richards. I think that the following sentence would probably be taken out too, right? Because that one is referring particularly to a review board.
Agreed.
Sorry.
That's a fun ringtone. All right, so the civilian review board should serve that down to police department. That should get out. Yep.
It's Representative Flax. I'm just wondering in terms, instead of the word better, that would serve to improve communications, or I don't know, I'm not sure of the word.
I'm a sucker for alliteration, so I tend to lean that way. Better bridge, but yeah, like improve. I'm open to whatever.
Representative Gauthier, I agree with Representative Flax on that.
So it'd be serve to improve communications.
And do we want to keep in an effort to ensure fair and just treatment, or can we want to get rid of that and just end the sentence at community? Or do we like, see, to research civilian review and oversight models available to Groton that would serve to improve communications between the police department and community in an effort to ensure fair and just treatment for the citizens and officers of the town of Groton. Are we good with that?
Richards, I'd say keep it in.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, for the sake of expedience, I mean, we're already kind of doing it, but just to make it official, I'm totally fine with just kind of the round robin open conversation we're doing. So I like that. I see hands raised, but I'm kind of focused on the document over to my left. So feel free to kind of take turns and speak as you feel. All right, so we're going to keep that sentence. And then this would include significant efforts by the police department to continually collaborate with all of the community. That sentence, how do we feel about that one? You want to keep that or drop it?
I think it could be dropped, but I don't see any harm in keeping it. I mean,
Representative Richards here. I think I might add, not only the police department, but the town jointly.
So police department and the town?
That's my suggestion.
Any
Representative
objections?
Gauthier, I would just say town of Groton for complete
Yeah.
clarity.
Formality, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, thank you. And there's a period. Oh, do we need a period there or no? I'm sorry. What's the format here?
There's, some people do, some people don't. With bigger paragraphs, I tend to, but it doesn't matter. Like, as long as it's consistent across the entire way, just pick one.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm fine with leaving no period at the end of it, but using periods inside the body of each one to stay grammatically correct.
Yeah.
All right. So are we good with number one? Number one consensus goal?
Yes.
Any objections? Okay. Moving on to number two. To protect human rights and increase public confidence in law enforcement. Civilian participation in law enforcement is critical to maintaining the necessary levels of trust, respect, and accountability for a safe time, with an emphasis on continuing to provide an effective and professional police service for the community.
Representative Gauthier, do we mean civil rights? I don't know if
I'm okay with civil.
human rights is a big kind of scope to give to a community oversight group or whatever we're calling this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think civil rights is more specific towards police and police efforts.
Yeah.
This is Representative Richards. As a professor of human rights, I would advocate for the human rights part, just because human rights include civil rights, also economic, political, and social. And I think that police work includes enforcing all of those things.
All right. Shall we take a vote on that?
Well, could we just have a little bit more discussion?
Sure.
Representative Richards, I respect that. I don't think I completely understand though. So my thought is, how are we going to, if we're questioning the police on how well they are enforcing the economic condition of how are they promoting or protecting the human economic rights of an individual? Or I just think civil rights keeps it very specific to what is typically in the scope of law enforcement and what they are trained on and all of that.
Police, are also asked to do things like make sure people have access to, voting, which should be a political right, and things such as that. How about we just leave off any kind of descriptor and just say to protect rights?
I can agree with that. Yes.
Any objections to just straight rights? Okay, seeing none. Moving on. Do we feel that civilian participation in law enforcement, that explainer sentence, is that too much wordiness for a goal? Or is that kind of a good explainer to attach to that goal?
Representative Gauthier, I think having the elaboration is good.
Is beneficial?
Yeah.
Any objections to the elaboration? Okay, very well. Moving on to number 3. Transparency in procedures, accountability for misconduct, and accolades for acts of an extraordinary nature. That now I'm reading it out loud, that definitely I feel like that needs some help, because that's not really a goal unless we put some words in front of transparency, I think. To craft a system or something like that, maybe. Any thoughts?
What procedures are you referring to?
As far as I believe, if I mean, all right, just to be clear, like the way these things came together, I was basically copying and pasting from everyone's documents that they submitted for goals and recommendations, and then just kind of like shaping the words to flow together. So there's like a collage of everyone's words in here. So that was a phrase I pulled from somebody somewhere.
This is Representative Cassiere.
Yeah.
I think the vagueness is the issue with it. Just
Okay.
if you're trying to say transparency in police policies and procedures, that narrows it down a bit.
Any objections to that?
Otherwise, we just don't know what kind of procedures you're referring to.
Understood. Agreed. All right.
So Representative Richards, I agree as well. To your question of how to begin that, perhaps to increase transparency.
Okay. Any objections to that phrase? Or other thoughts, I should say, not objections, not to be confrontational. Any
I would
other
only say that I think that there's transparency right now, and so it's making in the opinion that the transparency that is there right now isn't enough. I don't know.
Yeah, I see that.
I agree, Representative Flax. This is Representative Cassiere. I would suggest to increase and to maintain, perhaps, showing that we can always improve, but it doesn't make it seem like there is a lack of transparency.
Maybe we could say to ensure. I know it's in line 4 too, but some word along the line of ensure transparency, or I don't know.
Yep.
Representative Richards here. How about perhaps to promote? Maybe, in that way, kind of making more people aware of the how to access policies and procedures and things like that by promoting the transparency. Just another thought.
Representative Cassiere, I agree with Representative Richards. I think that's a good way of putting it.
Yes. All right.
I do as well.
Right. Yeah. Promote has a good kind of duality to the word.
Sorry, I don't mean to wear on this, but to promote access in police policy and procedures, because if there's already the transparency there and we want to promote the access, do we need to include the actual word transparency? Or we say to promote access in promote access of police policy and procedures maintain and improve transparency, like added as another clause after that first comma. And that would flow into the accountability for misconduct,
I think I would,
if that makes sense.
I would go with what it had been myself. I think it gets a little, maybe too, I don't know, convoluted isn't the right word, but it's the only one that's coming to my mind right now.
Yeah, the wording gets a little clunky with that, but let's see.
Could I demonstrate what I mean, maybe, since
Yeah, go
everyone's
for it.
looking at the doc?
Yeah, go for it. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm seeing the clunkiness now. So I will put that back. Though it seems odd to me to say to promote transparency if it's already there, if what we're really saying is promote access to the transparency.
Well, I like the duality of it because, as Representative Richards noted, that promote could be, something that, is being pushed forward as an action to make it happen, but also, a way to kind of promote transparency as a priority within the whole relationship, but it also promotes out into the community where it kind of helps create that understanding that this transparency exists, and implicit in that would be the providing an understanding on how to access that transparency, I guess.
Ian, this is Sima. Can I just say something?
Sure. Yeah, we're doing kind of a round robin.
Okay.
No one's need to be called on. Just
I
kind of,
raised my hand, but I wasn't sure if you were monitoring that. I would just maybe say to promote transparency, awareness, and access to. But that's just a thought.
let's try
This
that.
Representative Gauthier, that sounds good. Thank you, Representative Sima, or Evan.
So to promote transparency, awareness, and access.
I think that works.
Policy and procedures, and then comma, accountability. So that, yeah, with that comma there, then accountability, the verb that would attach to would be promote. So that works. Because yeah, if you took out that one section, it'd be to promote accountability for misconduct and accolades for acts of an extraordinary nature. Which I think it is important as one of the things I was trying to make an effort for in here. So was to try to emphasize the fact that a body like this, whatever form it takes, can be used not just as a critical tool, but also a constructive tool for what the police department does. As much as they may, need some critical oversight, they also can benefit from like constructive feedback. And, when positive things happen, like I think the onus would be on the community relations board or whatever it ends up being, would be to like help push that out there and make note of that too. It's important not to get stuck on the negative.
I have this on Representative Hanscom, a slightly different note. I just noticed that the Roman numerals for the table of contents doesn't necessarily match the actual content. There's actually two Roman numeral ones under historical context and the second part, basic models.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. No.
And then it switches all the ones thereafter.
Yeah, there are some auto formatting issues with this thing that got away from me a little bit. So basic models, that would be 2, right? That should be 2.
Yeah.
Anybody let me know if you want me to move anything so you can see a different screen. I don't want to beat it. I don't want to like go word crazy. When we say to promote transparency, awareness, and access, are we want to promote that for police policy and procedures? Or do we want to promote that for like, I don't know, Representative Cassiere might be able to help, but like what happens after, you know, the records of the police instead of, do you know what I mean? Like it.
Are you referring to the investigation findings?
Yeah, well, I'm saying when I think of transparency, I think of being able to know exactly what's going on. And as an example, the chief posts, you know, everything online. That's transparency. So it's not necessarily transparency, awareness, and access. Maybe it's maybe awareness and access to police policy and procedures, but to me, it's more of the reporting. But I could be off. Like it's more of like the police reports of what's going on, but I could be off base. So
this is Representative Thomas. My thoughts on that would be that awareness and access are, I mean, that would also be a good goal because, you know, people, I think a lot of times there's misunderstandings in the public as far as like what actually are the policies and procedures inside police conduct. You know, as Representative Cassiere's you know, individual recommendation notes, there's a lot of minutia and detail inside of all that. And I would like to see, my personal goal and my interest in this project was to help try to break down those walls of misunderstanding and kind of so that the public can be aware and have access to the policies and procedures so they understand, you know, what the police are acting under, what sort of mandates and directives they have. And actually it would also provide a chance for the public to speak back to that and say like, well, you know, we do have issues with this. And then that could start a process of maybe reconsidering certain policies and procedures.
okay, that's fine.
All right. Are we good with number 3 then? Any objections to moving on? I'm leaning on everyone to be vocal because my eyes are not on the main screen here for looking for hands. So hearing no objections to moving on, we're on to number 4. To ensure continual training efforts on de-escalation of conflict, mental health, implicit biases, and restorative justice. This should include observing patterns, reviewing trends, and discussing police training. Any thoughts?
This is Representative Cassiere. My only input for this would be to put in there something about in compliance with post C, because post is going to be the body that requires the training.
Mm-hmm.
The police department can always go on top of that, but that is also going to fall back on post.
Okay. What was the phrase you used again?
To ensure continual training efforts in compliance with post C.
Okay. I'll put that in there and then open the
This
floor
is
for discussion.
This is Representative Richards. I think it's good for people to understand, like you suggest, kind of where these, kind of, you know, where the laws are, where the police department should be aligning itself, where it's required to do things. I'm not sure if it's our job though, as the committee, to say, hey, you need to be in compliance with post C. So for that reason, I'm not sure that this would be the place to put that.
Fair point. Also, like I would fear like getting like a little lost in the nuts and bolts of. And is that sort of implied, perhaps, or?
My only issue is that continual training efforts is very vague.
Mm-hmm.
And I always fall back on to the, I know I reiterate this in every meeting, but there's standards that the police departments have to follow. And so I just would like to make sure that the public understands that it's really not up to the town of Groton how much training officers receive.
My apologies. Would it be appropriate just to say in compliance with state policies and compliance with state requirements?
State law and mandate?
I think that's acceptable.
Okay, I just don't know that everybody would know what post C is.
Yeah, throw people off.
Absolutely, I agree.
I mean, well, we do have a little explainer for it somewhere else in the body of this text, but it's a very minute mention. It sort of just happens. Yeah.
Yes,
All
I'm
right.
sorry to get into the nuts and bolts like you said, but I just want to make sure that the public understands that it's not something that just can be thought of. You know what I mean? There's standard trainings that they can apply to and they don't always get. But this at least shows, that it's up to someone to mandate it.
Right. Makes sense.
Representative Richards, just to ponder a little bit more, I wonder, there's two different thoughts maybe that could be read into it. Are we recommending that the police comply with the state laws? Because I don't think that's much of a statement to make. They should be, right? We don't need to ask them to do that. Or are we recommending that they consider how to, increase training when they're possible, apply for more training in these areas than is the bare minimum?
Representative Gauthier here. I think we're just still on the goals section. And so a comment I was going to make after was maybe we could include something explaining how we would see this goal being carried out to make sure, if we want to ensure continual training efforts, we do say this should, like our goal is to ensure continual training efforts, and it says this should include, but would it be this would include? Just changing that word, because I mean, how else? I'm just trying to make the goal actionable.
How about, would that suffice? Putting including compliance with state law? Nah,
I think she's looking at the second sentence. Am I correct?
Oh.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm sorry. Yeah, you go ahead, make the edit and we'll talk about it. This would include. Okay. This would include observing patterns, reviewing trends, and discussing police training.
Could we say police training opportunities? Or do you just want to keep police training overall?
Yeah, because I mean, opportunities would imply like things extra or beyond, but there may come a time where we want to like consider what's actually been done and does that want to continue or whatever, that sort of thing. I like the infinitive version of that. But I'm open to suggestion. If this committee wants to put something else in there, I'm fine with it. All right, so are we going to call that good for number 4? Any objections to moving on to number 5? All right, hearing none, moving on to number 5. To establish clear outlined expectations. Oh, interesting. That sounds weird. to establish clear outlined expectations as information flows between the committee and the police force. Yikes.
Which committee are you referring to?
Yeah, that's an incredibly vague sentence. I apologize. I think what I was trying to get at here is to help to establish clear outlined expectations of conduct, I guess, between the community and the police.
Representative Richards here, it seems a little bit redundant with the transparency sentence up above, so perhaps it's not necessary.
I'm all for striking it if that.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a useless sentence now that I'm reading it out loud. All right, so that would bring us to the recommendations.
Representative Gauthier here. I'm just kind of going back and rereading through this all and trying to put it in the context of the entire report. So consensus goals, first to research the civilian review and oversight models. And then as far as the goals of the research committee, I think we need to include something within to say, you know, if you read it from the view of what it is, which is consensus goals of the committee, consensus goals of the committee to protect rights and increase public confidence in law enforcement would be that sentence for number 2. So wherein we don't really say anywhere in here that we're going to be providing recommendations, and I do believe it was a goal of the committee to provide recommendations, since that's what we're doing in this report. So I'm sorry that we just worked all through this, but I did go back and just try to contextualize this, and that's what popped out to me.
Well, I would think that could be a fine number 5 goal.
All right, to provide recommendations on all of the points listed above or something like that.
To provide recommendations to the community, to the town council and the community.
Based on our research.
Based on our research. And just kind of leave it open-ended like that.
Can I just say, maybe you want to provide information and recommendations, because you guys have collected an amazing amount of information.
Yes. Oops. I should say 4. To provide information and recommendations for the town council and the community in regards to the subject of improving police and community relations. How does that sound?
Should we add that we're providing this to the full RTM as well?
Yep. I'm okay with that. Any objections or other considerations? All right.
Is it, the town council is the one who is putting together everything, right? That's why we're giving it to them.
But at some point, if there's an ordinance passed, it would come to the RTM for that whole veto situation.
Okay.
And I would say, since we are a committee of the RTM, it would make sense that we're providing this report to them as well, since we'll have to basically through our minutes and our meeting, our monthly meeting reports.
And I was referring mostly to the information aspect of that.
Yeah, and I think the information would, it's just the RTM is going to receive this report and it'll be filed however it's filed with the body. So it's for everyone's use. However they want to use it. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Any objections to moving on from number 5 or any other further considerations on number 5 of the goals? All right. Hearing none, moving on to the recommendations. Number 1, recommendation, regardless of whether the town chooses to form a civilian review board, police and community together group, or change nothing, complaints and findings should be visibly available to the public on the town's website. Oops.
This is Representative Cassiere. I was just going to suggest that we scratch that whole first part and just put civilian complaints and investigation findings should be visible or visibly available to the public on the town's website.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yes, I agree also.
Mhm.
And they are already, correct?
I don't believe they are yet. I believe Chief Visaro has agreed to that, but I believe he's waiting on the town council to make their decision on what they are promoting.
Okay, thank you.
Civilian complaints and the associated findings should be visibly available to the public on the town's website. Yeah, we can just leave it right there, right?
I would just scratch on the town's website, get rid of the complaint investigation findings. I'm sorry, you just erased it. On the town's website for the public to review,
Okay.
and just leave it at that.
All right. Any other considerations for number 1?
With that sentence, I think you can delete the first reference to the public in that sentence.
Okay.
You can get rid of the to and the before on the.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that comment. What was that? All right, are we good for moving on to number 2?
Yes.
Okay. As a committee, we feel that a specific pact style group, or should I put that together? I need to spell that out.
Representative Gauthier, I think we can scrap the word specific there.
Okay. All right, we feel that a police and community together pact style group would be the best next step for the town of Groton. Although it does not provide direct oversight, a pact style committee would build stronger relationships between police and the community, increase communication, and allow for the police and community to exchange recommendations. The establishment of a collaborative committee, including community leaders, the police department, town government, and other stakeholders, is a great first step. This collaborative committee can be designed in a similar way to the one newly created by the City of Groton to open communication and make recommendations to the Town Council's Public Safety Committee. Thoughts?
This is Sima. I'm not sure if you get to this later on because I just got access to this document, but I do think that, unless you discuss the structure of it, the mayor of the city of Groton is the chair of that. And I would suggest that, you be specific in what you mean, because personally, I don't necessarily think that would be the best way. I think it's probably better to have folks that are, there's a reinforced line of authority when you have the mayor be the chair of a group like that, and those lines of power can perhaps stifle some of the dynamics and the collaboration that might occur otherwise.
That's a good point.
Representative Richards, I just said we hadn't really discussed or come to a consensus on the details of what that would be. We would need to open that up for discussion.
That's fine. Then I would suggest be very careful in the way you phrase this, because that when I see someone say that you want to design it in a similar way to the city's one, then you're not being specific about what kind of characteristics you're conveying and which ones you're excluding. And so I would suggest deleting it or getting super specific.
Representative Gauthier here. So I very much appreciate Representative Evans' point. We do have a recommended structure in membership. Do you think it would be appropriate to bring that up underneath it and then discuss what elements we are specifically trying to bring in from the PAC style and any that we would specifically disclude there in that particular recommendation of number 2?
Understood. My concern with that, I think definitely getting specific with this recommendation, I'm in full support of. However, bringing up the construct from later in the recommendations, that construct later was more targeted towards a civilian review board with some authority attached to it. Whereas this PACT group, I thought, my understanding of it was that it was going to be sort of like a first step, possibly like there could become a future where, if the town chose to go forward with a civilian review board, that it would be a separate entity from the PACT group. It wouldn't, the PACT group would just be there for like promoting community and police collaboration and, sort of like the social aspect of it, and the CRB would be the more formal aspect of it. At least that was my understanding, is that we wanted, or that there was like some thought given to like having the two be somewhat separate, if the second entity ever came to be.
Representative Gauthier here, wouldn't that be a little redundant then to have two different groups kind of doing similar work, with one just having a little bit more authority or power, as it were? I don't remember voting on a recommendation though to promote any idea of a civilian review board that has authorities outside of what the PACT has.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. No. Like. Yeah. If memory serves, we reserved that for the individual recommendations, and basically said that the PAC would be the area where that would be determined if there was a need to go forward with something further. So yeah, let's see, how could we do that? So yeah, we could bring the structure up, I guess. So
This is Jill. Can I say, I don't think that by saying similar to the city of Groton that we are forcing the town of Groton to do it exactly the same. I think by saying similar to the city of Groton, you're just giving a reference to what the pact style group is. I think the town will need to design it and structure it in a way that's right for them. So I don't see the conflict so much in the statement of designed to be a similar way to the one newly created in the city of Groton.
This is Representative Cassiere. I agree with Representative Rusk.
I agree as well.
I think we can even just put a broad line in there, just stating that the town can develop the type of group. It doesn't necessarily need to be exactly like the city of Groton. We just want to put together a group where there is civilians and police, and they're able to openly communicate in some sort of forum.
Okay.
I also wouldn't expect the town to have the same goals as the city in their pact group. So I think we really can do this, or the town could do this in a way that's unique to them.
I just don't see the point of mentioning this unless you're saying what exactly it is that you want. So why don't you just describe what it is you want and then describe the details or the characteristics of this committee that you want. But I don't really see any added benefit to referring to the city of Groton's pact when you're not telling us what it is about that is recommended from this committee's point of view and what is not. To me, it's very confusing because my understanding of it is as a package. So it's very unclear what it is exactly you mean. I would just delete that reference and say that you're recommending a collaborative committee that includes police, department, town government, and other stakeholders. And you know, then you might footnote this and say that the city of Groton model and describe it and say, you know, what is this committee likes or doesn't like about it if there's consensus on that. But I don't see, you know, holding it up as a model when there's obviously characteristics of it that you're not necessarily recommending.
Representative Richards here. I would be happy to strike the reference to the city of Groton. I think if that's not really necessary here.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think it should be taken out.
I'm in favor of that as well. All right, so let's see here.
With regards to that first line, can we say exchange ideas instead of recommendations?
Sure, I'm okay with that. Anyone else? Anyone object to that?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
Wanted to change the word recommendation to ideas.
Thank you.
Hmm. Right. As a committee, we feel that a police and community collaborative group would be the best next step for the town of Groton. Although it would not Provide direct oversight or review. This committee would build stronger relationships between the police and community, increase communication, and allow for the police and community to exchange ideas. The establishment of a collaborative committee, including community leaders, the police department, town government, and other stakeholders is a great first step. This collaborative committee can be designed in a way to open communication and make recommendations to the town council's public safety committee.
This is Representative Cassiere. Could we, if everyone agrees, just change the language of other stakeholders to members of the public? Because this really is supposed to be an opportunity for people to be able to voice their concerns to the police department.
Or use community, so it's even more specific, Groton community or something like that.
I agree.
I like the Groton community suggestion.
The establishment of a collaborative committee, including community leaders, the police department, town government, and the Groton community. Do we want to put an at-large there, or and the Groton community members?
I think it's fine,
Or
that community being lowercase.
Or
Yeah.
members of the Groton community.
Members, yeah, that'll do it. Okay. Any other considerations on number 2? For the sake of reducing redundancy, should I get rid of as a committee? We feel that, get rid of those, where just say a police and community collaborative group would be the best next step.
Yes, I would say so.
A lot.
Representative Richards saying yes, that sounds good.
All right. Okay. All right. With no other considerations on number 2, we'll move on to number 3. Funding for the police department to commit to more officers for targeted community policing based on need, paid social workers on town staff exclusively for the purpose of responding to police calls with officers for every shift, and committing to and funding more training in defensive tactics, use of force, implicit bias, etc.
Can someone explain what that actually means?
Representative Cassiere, do you want to take a swing at that?
Sure. This was actually my recommendation in my personal recommendations. Which section are you having a hard time with, Representative Hanscom?
For number 3, let's see more. The targeted community-based policing based on need, comma, based. I don't know. It's just, it doesn't really.
Well, that phrase,
Sense.
targeted community policing based on need. What is that actually?
Paid social workers and.
Targeted community policing would be, so if we're suggesting a PAC style group. So if the police department sits down with the community and the community says, we would like more officers on bicycles and on downtown.
Mhm.
That would be a targeted community policing effort where they could put bicycle cops in that section of the town. That's what I meant by targeted community policing.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
This is Representative Rusk.
Yes.
This is suggesting that we are growing our police department with social workers, or are you saying that you want to reduce our police officers and replace them with social workers.
This is stating that the police department would grow based on the need for community policing, which means we would need more police officers. However, the social workers would be a separate entity, so it would not affect the amount of officers. It would be putting social workers on town staff for the sole purpose of the police department for their shifts.
So we're talking co-responders on call that
Did you get a list of calls here?
Correct. Because the town of Groton, they do have mobile outreach, which is a program where they have social workers in the cars with them sometimes, but they do not have them on every shift and they do not have them all the time.
and this is one of the reasons why I was drawn to this recommendation, is because that's something I picked up on too with the interview we did with the chief, where he mentioned something about like the social workers that they do have available at times often aren't available after 11 p.m. or something like that.
Exactly. So many mental health calls occur on midnight shift. And so they don't have those resources at night,
Which
which
is,
is why I suggested having them for every shift.
yeah. And that's something I would be in favor of as well. I mean, if we're gonna, like, the more research I've done into these subjects, like the idea of co-responders, I think is a great evolution of policing.
And I would be perfectly comfortable changing the front of this section to perhaps suggesting funding for the police department. So we're not telling, the public safety committee that they need to do this,
Mhm.
but it would be something that would be beneficial to our town police.
I 100% understand the reasoning behind this. I'm just having a hard time with the concept of you would have at least 6 social workers to cover every shift. That's a lot of government to grow. And how often would they be utilized? I'm talking out loud here. I understand that, emergency mental health care is very limited. This is just a huge growth. And I just think we should talk this through a little bit more before putting this in our recommendations.
Representative Hanscom, could we just say to consider options for the targeted community policing? Sorry, I just forgot what I was saying. Shoot.
Representative Richards here. I think the recommendation to consider options in line with these things probably does make more sense than the way it was originally worded for us as a committee to recommend. And I think that these things certainly would be helpful in our town, but as Representative Rusk is bringing up, there are other things to discuss and that would need to be part of a larger conversation.
I just remembered, can we say such as paid workers of town, like as a, possible, or as an example?
I wonder if you could kind of tier your recommendations. So there's some that you are, think are really necessary and others that you're suggesting. I mean, certainly if funding wasn't an issue, this seems like it would be ideal, but I totally hear Representative Rusk's concerns.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, we could try to rearrange these so that they, the most, we figure high priority recommendations would be like in the first set, like in the first 3 or 4 slots, and then lesser priority recommendations could be lower, if that's agreeable.
This is Representative Cassiere again. Perhaps we could phrase this I completely understand what you guys are saying. These were my individual recommendations based on my conversations with the police department when I met with them. Perhaps we can just make a statement such as to consider options for funding and researching these options. So we're not trying to say that they need to do these things, but perhaps look into options besides civilian review boards and PAC style groups, something to that effect.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, policing based on need, such as, like, example, paid social workers, blah, blah, blah. We're not saying we have to have those.
I wonder if we could just take out the funding part and say to consider options like committing more offers, to commit more officers and to maybe initiate a discussion about these very specific and likely impactful things, but also to say that, to consider those options along with the larger view.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I would just add to maybe use the verbiage of to research, because obviously the town would have to do a lot of research into how these would work in our community.
Right. Okay. Oh, God. All right, hold on a second. I just lost my screen.
So would it be to research the following, more officers for targeted community policing based on need, paid social workers on town staff, exclusively for the purpose of responding to that?
Representative Flax, could you say that again?
To research, I don't remember what I said, to research the following options, or to research these options.
Here's options. I like what Representative Hanscom said about such as, because that's sort of a non-committal phrase for us to use that kind of suggests these ideas, meaning like limited to this list. We're just kind of shooting out some ideas that came to our mind, but further research might reveal other options that are even better.
I agree with that.
So research options for funding or is to research options for targeted community policing based on need, such as paid social workers on town staff as co-responders. Would that be a cleaner way to say that?
That's okay with me.
Representative Hanscom, we could probably take out town staff at that point, because we're implying that anyway, if there's paid social workers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I apologize for that verbiage. I wanted to just clarify that there was a difference between the mobile outreach responders and we would actually staff people for the town so that it was readily available for our officers all the time.
How about regular co-responders? Available for every shift? All right.
Could we change the such as to the beginning? Because as it says right now, to research options for targeted community policing based on needs such as, but those are actually two separate things.
Understood.
Thank you.
All right, and funding for more training in defensive tactics, use of force, and implicit bias, etc. Could we expand that etc. to a couple other things? Like conflict resolution and de-escalation? Are those things that are training modules that are in the realm of police training?
It's actually somewhat covered under use of force, but if you'd like to put it in parentheses, perhaps in that section,
Okay.
because de-escalation would be covered under use of force.
Right. And that's where I think like there might be a bit of a gap between like what's implied for someone who's versed in police language versus someone who's not. Where-
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would like to kind of just lay it right out there. How's that? Funding for more training in defensive tactics, conflict resolution, de-escalation, use of force, and implicit bias.
Looks good.
Any other considerations? All right. If no other considerations on number 3, moving on to number 4. Here comes the big one. If the choice is made to create a civilian review board, which I'll just reiterate the CRB, every effort should be made to ensure the process is fully inclusive. This entire process, this process should involve input from the greater community, not just RTM and town council members. This will help design the body to suit the needs of the town while also raising awareness about the new committee. The committee should be made up of members of the community who represent a cross-section of race/ethnicity, gender, age, and background. There should also be representatives from the police union, police administration, town staff, and elected officials. This could also include possibly RTM members from each district, community leaders, clergy, social workers, and social workers. Further, members of the Groton Youth Collective, Hearing Youth Voices, the NAACP, Hispanic Alliance, Arc of Eastern Connecticut, OutCT should be considered, along with retired law enforcement officers and otherwise law enforcement officer trained and experienced civilians. Something's not right here. That's a lot of clunkiness there. I'm open to suggestion on this. Thoughts? Is this a recommendation we want to put in there? Because there is some debate over proceeding to a civilian review board. That's why I put the word if the choice is made.
I would just also add, sorry, this is Representative Cassiere. If the choice and if there's enough interest, because I think that was a lot of our concern too.
Mm-hmm.
If the pact deemed that it was of interest to the community, that would be the next step.
All right.
This is Representative Richards. I just wanted to note that I don't see that Representative Gauthier is here, and she's the one who had brought up some hesitation about this particular section. So I'm not entirely sure if she's comfortable with if the choice is made and then giving some stipulations, or if she was really interested in not having this included at all.
We lost Representative Gauthier.
I believe she said in the chat she'd be back.
Okay.
I would be comfortable with skipping this section and then coming back to it when she returns.
All right, I'm gonna highlight it. We'll put a comment here to come back. Okay. Moving on to number 5. If legal, the CRB could be a subcommittee of the Town Council Public Safety Committee and have that body issue any reports of concern up through the Town Council, Town Manager, and Chief. The CRB through the PSC and the Town Council could have powers that include the following. Okay, that's a little clunky, but again, this is all into the hypothetical realm. However, I included it because I thought it was important, you know, as part of our research, we did go there in our considerations. And even if the town does not go there now, there may come a day where they do choose to go there. And I feel it's important to have some of our considerations on record. And it would be nice, I think it would be beneficial to have this conversation about, you know, if the town did choose to go with the CRB, what could we agree on as a consensus to put forward as a model of what that would be?
This is Representative Cassiere. Wasn't there issues, I'm just thinking back to the meeting with the town manager about if there were a CRB falling under the Public Safety Committee?
Well, that's one of those things where, I mean, my memory of it is that, you know, it's debatable. You know, it depends on how the charter is interpreted and you know who's interpreting it. The words are kind of out there, and the way I understand the town council to function is that, you know, the town council can form subcommittees that can inform the council's decision, but any subcommittee can't take action on its own. Any action would have to be funneled through the council.
I completely understand what you're saying. I'm just, I hesitate to use such, I mean, this is very specific. And because it is so up in the air with the town attorneys and the town manager, I just hesitate in using such, I mean, these are really specific guidelines of how the CRB would fall, you know, under the town council, through the PSC. I'm wondering if we should just make this a bit more vague since it is such an up in the air thing right now.
Any other thoughts on that? Let's see.
This is Representative Richards. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm still kind of thinking about this a little bit, but just to continue the conversation, I guess to me it does seem a little bit maybe off kilter to be giving so much detail for a hypothetical, you know, more detail than we are for the things that we are truly recommending to be put into place. So for that reason, I think I would lean towards what Representative Cassiere is suggesting. Also, you know, I'd just be interested in why do you think the CRB would be best as a subcommittee versus some alternative?
Yeah, speaking from my own personal interpretation of the situation, I thought, yeah, I mean, to me, like that's the simplest way. If the desire of the town was to create a CRB, the way I understand the town charter to work and the town council, if that CRB wanted the full range of possibilities, whether or not it has, I mean, the way it would be the simplest way to create the CRB, but not have to assign powers to it directly. And it would ease any anxiety about like charter changes or circumventing the existing chain of command, because as a subcommittee of the town council, it would not be able to take any action without first going through the town council and through the town manager. So any sort of action it would want to take, it would have to go through those filters, which would follow the existing chain of command. And that's, you know, just sort of my armchair quarterback take on it. Admittedly, you know, not a lawyer, just an English major.
This is Representative Cassiere. I completely understand what you're saying. My hesitation is it's not up to us and our committee to interpret the
Mhm.
charter in our own ways. So I would hesitate in even classifying this as subcommittees or anything at this point. I say if I would suggest if legal, the community review board, I'm sorry, the civilian review board could have powers that include the following and just leave it at that.
Okay.
Representative Richards, I wonder if maybe that level of detail might just be more appropriate in your personal recommendations rather than in this consensus area.
I agree with you, Representative Richards.
I also agree with Representative Richards. I feel like we are very detailing, we're being very detailed on how we're outlining the CRB, which is not what we're really recommending, versus we're not really detailing the police and community collaborative group. So it seems like from somebody, if you weren't in this committee, you'd be looking at this and saying, why are they detailing this so much? And I don't think we all agree with all of the details.
All right. So are we, let's see. So yeah, I mean, I agree with those assessments and I definitely, you know, again, I put these in here just so we could have this conversation directly. So I'm more than willing to take this section out and anything that I, you know, my thoughts and my interpretations, I'll shift to my individual recommendations and discussion. So yeah, I mean, if there's no objection from the rest of the committee, we can make that move.
This is Representative Gauthier. Could you just explain, I'm sorry, I know I jumped back in. Could you explain what move that you guys are making?
So the concern was that we kind of went off on, well, I put in this tangent of like the what if scenario in number 5. If legal, the CRB could be a subcommittee of the Town Council Public Safety Committee and have that body issue any reports of concern up to the Town Council. And then it goes on in even more detail of like what powers the committee could have. And
So did you guys, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, so, you know, the upshot is that Representative Cassiere and Richards expressed concern over going into this much detail over a hypothetical that may or may not come to pass. Plus, there's not consensus of the group on exactly what powers or how the structure should be, because there's debatable interpretations of how the charter could be applied in this situation, which I agree with. This is definitely a tangent, and I am, you know, my interpretation that, you know, kind of put this together is definitely like, you know, just mine.
Okay, so I would, my thought about that initially is this all covered in your individual recommendation?
Yeah, there's a parallel.
Okay,
echo to
so yeah, I think then we should probably remove it since there isn't a consensus and since this is included in your individual recommendation. Just my thought.
So 5 and all its subparts will shift. Well, I'll just take that out of here.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Thomas. My biggest concern was that there was just so much issues with, even the town manager was saying he didn't realize how it was going to work because everything is just up to interpretation right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is Representative Flax. I was just wondering, from a time frame perspective, if you thought, Representative Thomas, that we were going to finish this whole thing tonight, or just where you were at with that.
I am open to suggestion on that. I definitely wouldn't mind trying to push through to a point where we're like pretty near completion but we could bump it, get as much done as we are comfortable doing tonight while we're feeling fresh, and then move on to
Rep-
finish off in another meeting.
Representative Gauthier here. I think that we should finish the recommendation since we have only 2 more left. And then it looks like you guys want to circle back from where I had to step away. Though I do have a point. If we're getting rid of the hypothetical about a CRB, then wouldn't that also include number 6 and number 7, if number 7 was supposed to be directly applied to the CRB?
Right. Yep, fair point. So I'll pull 6 out of there, but 7 could be repurposed to describe the community collaborative group if we wanted to do that. Just a thought. Or we could leave that collaborative group to be determined by other people than us.
I'm sorry, is that number 7?
Yeah, number 7. So yeah, I could we could move number 7 or blend number 7 into number 2. If we wanted to get more specific about how we see that community collaborative group forming.
Representative Gauthier, this looks similar to what I put in my personal recommendation. Is that correct, Chair Thomas?
Yes, I
Okay.
did it with mine. I added a couple.
Mm-hmm.
I've added the mayor and,
So,
and I'm open to that.
Yeah, a question. So the 6 community stakeholder members, 2 to 4 retired Leo or otherwise Leo trained. Is that supposed to be included in that 6? So then, or is that in addition to the 6?
Sorry, my mistake. No, that would be included in the 6, and I meant to take the 2 to 4 out so it didn't dominate, but maybe at least just to have those voices involved.
Okay, and then when in my personal recommendation, the way that I designed it was so that there were more community stakeholders than representatives from the town or the police department specifically, so that they had just like a slightly bigger balance. I think they had like 1 or 2 extra members compared to town officials and police officers. So I don't know if that's something you want to include in there.
Well, if
or actually, we should put it out to the group if this is even something we want to include under number 2, a specific structure.
Yes, and just before we do that, I just want to say one more thought. If we do decide to try to blend this structure into number 2 as a setup for the police and community collaborative group, I would definitely look at getting the town attorney out of there and possibly the mayor as well. I had loaded it up like that in a way for the CRB because there may be like legal issues and big town issues that would have to be weighed in whatever deliberations were happening. So that was the thought with adding those 2 people into the mix. But yeah, so out to the committee at large, do we want to try to get very specific with the policing community collaborative group, or do we want to leave it for another body to determine?
I would recommend that we just, our recommendation be more along the lines of that we would recommend a broad spectrum of town residents and stakeholders, or whatever word you want to use, rather than being this specific.
Okay, so I'm sorry, is there anybody else that wants to share a thought on that?
Representative Richards, I agree. I would stick with the wording that's in 2 now, and I would not include this level of detail or be restricted to this number and these particular people in this way without having much more discussion and thought about that.
I agree with Representative Richards.
Yeah, can support all of those points.
I agree as well. All right. So that brings us back to number 4. So yeah, so this is looking at, this is the what if scenario. If the town chooses, do we want to have a consensus recommendation on a CRB's structure and mission? Or do you want to leave that up for future body to determine and decide?
This is Representative Cassiere. I think since we struck the rest of the CRB recommendation that this should probably go as well, but that's up to all of us.
Any other thoughts?
I'm just reading over it quickly again.
The second half of it is admittedly clunky, as
Mhm.
was throwing in a hodgepodge of various phrases from various people's writings. So there's some
Yeah.
repetition, overlap, and redundancy there.
I wasn't able to view the edits as they were being made. What was substantively changed from the original text of this, besides adding all of these specific groups?
Oh, number 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't made any changes to number 4
Okay.
yet. Number 4 is as I drafted it over the past week or so.
Okay.
But that came as a collage. I was basically pulling phrases from everybody's writings and just kind of, pasting it together. And some of it.
May I ask what the consensus is on including this or not?
Yeah.
I think our recommendation is a police and community collaborative group.
Yeah.
That being said, do we want a statement that if the town council decides they want to do a civilian review board, we would like this, whatever this is?
That was the intent with this entry. That was my intent. Thank you for clarifying that.
Because I think we really have 2 options. Either we say our one and only goal is that, well, that we have the visibility on the website, but that we're not really recommending a civilian review board. We're only recommending a police and community collaborative group, and then training or more funding. Or we're saying if those things don't work, then we at least want a little bit of say or a little bit of direction for a civilian review board.
Right. And yeah, so my thoughts on this, like as an individual committee member, is that I would like to see, we can't anticipate, we don't know what's going to come out of that collaborative group. There could be an overwhelming desire to go straight to a CRB, or there could be a more gradual incremental approach, or that collaborative group could be the end of it, could be just exactly what it needs to be. So as a committee member, I would like to see a report that anticipates the possibility of a CRB being the community desire, and having that on record of what we would recommend if that was chosen. However, if it's not, then we're not pushing for it. If that makes sense. If that's like a sort of a razor's edge to stand on, but.
Representative Gauthier here. I think throughout our discussions, throughout the life of this committee, we've come up to this point where if there was a civilian review board, and we've talked about it quite a bit, and we never did find consensus on any of it besides a police and community collaborative group. So I would say either we take more time to discuss this thought more in order to find a consensus, or since it's part of that hypothetical that we already scrapped, that we scrap it if people don't think it's necessary or don't think we'll be able to come to a consensus after more talk.
Representative Hanscom, I just want to say, we are talking about if the choice is made to create a CRB, wouldn't it be the same for the PACs too? Wouldn't we also want the PACs to include some of these members? I just didn't know we were specifically stating that it has to be for the B, if that's considered.
Right. I've already spoken a couple times, so is there anybody else who wants to speak on that?
I agree. I think they should be the same mix of townspeople on whatever board is finally decided on.
Can we just say number 4, every effort should be made to ensure the process, like the whole process of everything, is it fully inclusive?
Got it. So, you know,
Representative Gauthier here, sorry, it says
Yep.
that in the last line of number 2, though, the establishment of collaborative committee, including community leaders, police department, town government,
Okay.
members of the community, all of that. So
Right.
I think that would be answered there.
This is Representative Richards. I would say that I myself would not say that it would be the same individuals on a PACT group as well as a review board. A review board should have people with certain specific training and expertise. I wonder, you know, I'm okay with including this number 4 or not. If we did, I would suggest maybe we take off the last couple sentences, or maybe it's just one long sentence that starts with, this could also include possibly RTM members, etc. Just because of, you know, the level of detail and kind of clunkiness that comes from that. And I think we address it earlier in there saying cross-section. And I don't know if that's something anyone would concur with, but if I saw that in there, I think that would look better. I'm okay with either way.
I can support that.
This is Representative Cassiere. I agree with Representative Richards that I think a PAC style group and a CRB would look different and they would have different types of people. I think that a PAC style should be much more informal and not have to have certain number of people in it. My biggest issue with having number 4 in here is we're recommending as a committee that we are suggesting a pact. And a PAC style group may come up with a civilian review board that looks much differently than what we believe. And so that's why I would recommend striking this, because the PACT group may come up with something completely different than us.
this is Representative Thomas. I agree with that. The more we're kind of tossing this back and forth, I feel like it'd be a lot simpler for the document if we just got rid of number 4 and, you know, save that kind of speculation for our individual recommendations and let the community collaborative group kind of take the leadership on what comes next. I mean, they'll have our recommendations to refer to, you know, if they choose. And I could live with that.
Representative Gauthier, I agree. I think for this part of the document, I think we'd be better off without that section.
Yeah, agreed.
Any objections?
I agree also.
That was Hanscom, I'm sorry.
Russ.
Oh, I was just saying that I agree that.
Oh, okay,
I do as well, Representative Flax.
we'll just lop that thing right out. There we go. All right, so that would conclude the recommendation section. Looking back on the 3 recommendations that we have, any other further considerations on those? Okay, I'm hearing none. All right. So, any objections? Well, I guess there was a couple sections I had some questions about. In the appendix, I was including some documents, like reference documents, ordinances, and resolutions made by other towns and municipalities and cities. And I was looking for the thing that created for the text that created the PCRC in London. And I was having a hard time finding like the structural document for that. Do we need that? Do we feel we need to include that in our references, or, and if so, does anyone know where we could find the structural text?
It's right on the New London website.
As far as like how it was established? Did I, no.
Oh, established? I'm not sure, but the actual structure of it is on the website.
Yeah, no, that's all I found was like just the makeup of it, but I was hoping to find like, you know, I know it came from a consent decree back in the 70s, and I was looking for like the ordinance or the resolution that actually formed the thing.
I can try
The
and
town
find
clerk, New London, would have access to that.
And well, do we feel like that's imperative to include in our references, or should I continue with trying to include that?
apparently it stems from a federal lawsuit, and it doesn't seem like we would be able to physically get it.
Okay. Well, you know, I don't think it's that absolutely necessary. It's, you know, that's where like the people that really want to dig deep into this document and cross-reference and read some of the source material and all that stuff, which if they're going to go that far, they're going to find it. They can find other things on their own.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's necessarily beneficial to our purposes anyway.
Yeah. Any objections to just not including? Well, sorry, that's a double negative. Yeah. Does anyone object to leaving that out of the references and resources?
I don't object. This is Representative Richards. I just want to say, yes, I agree. I believe it did come into being because it was federally mandated in some way. I just don't know the story behind that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think we just kind of leave it out. I mean, it's not that imperative. All right. So PDFs, there was some talk about trying to include the request forms and complaint forms for Groton Town Police in the appendix. Representative Gauthier made a note about possibly merging PDFs into the final document, or whether or not we actually need to include them anything beyond the link.
So Representative Gauthier here, my thought was if this is going to be like a printed report, or, you know, if it ever is printed and distributed to people, having just like a hyperlink in there won't be as useful. So if there is a reason that we need to really detail and like if in the body of the text, which I don't think it does, really talks the specifics about the form, I think it just mentions that we have forms. But if we were like dissecting the form, I would say include the actual documents in the text of the report. But I think just mentioning that it's available on the town website within the body of the report is sufficient.
I agree with Representative Gauthier. Any other thoughts on that?
Representative Richards here. I'm not sure, were you suggesting to have it in the appendix, like as an add-on?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that makes sense too. It would be helpful to have that attached to this so people can look at the wording and what that is in connection with this without having to go through the link. So I would support that.
Okay, so Representative Richards, you're saying you're in support of merging the PDFs into the appendix?
I'm not sure what the merging of the PDFs is referring to exactly, but I would say.
So I can't, sorry, Representative Gauthier, I can't just like copy and paste the documents into the Google Doc. I would have to use like an Adobe Acrobat in order to insert the forms into a PDF. And I'm assuming that when we distribute this and it's made available online, it'll be in a PDF form anyways. So what I was really saying here is that once we've agreed on this draft, I'll just download it and put it into an accessible PDF, and I can, you know, make it searchable and bookmark everything.
I didn't realize that was a technology related question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I would see the benefit. I see benefit. I can see the benefit of including the actual in PDFs in the appendix, so people for the sake of having a comprehensive understanding of what Groton has now available to it. So I mean,
Okay.
Gauthier, if that's a thing that could happen after we finalize the report,
Absolutely. Yep.
that'd be greatly appreciated. That's beyond my capabilities. Did I hear somebody else starting to speak? No. Okay. And then also that goes along with another question I had was the cover letter and the complaint / compliment report that Chief Asaro provided for us. That's something also I thought might be useful to have in the appendices.
Agree. I can include those.
Okay. Any objections from anyone to including those? Okay, very well then. We will include those. So let's see. Now the slides for the civilian oversight presentation. As it stands right now, we have just the text and some sections of that, and then some hyperlinks to the actual presentation. We're down now in Appendix E.
Sorry, Representative Thomas, where should I go?
Appendix E. So it would make this document really, really huge and incredibly clunky to try to include the slides. So I'm perfectly content with including the excerpts as we have them with links to the slides. So I think anyone, again, who wants to do further research on their own has sufficient references here to find their way to it.
Richard's here. I think that's fine.
Okay.
Agree.
All right. And then I'm assuming like silence is consent in this case. If no one's objecting, then we're just going to keep moving on. Appendix F, compilation of resources for further information here. There's more NACO stuff that Representative Richards got together. And then I included that resolution that formed the PAC committee. We're not going to include the PCRC stuff. And then I included the City of Hartford ordinance as well.
So Rep Gauthier here. I did cite both of these internally in the report.
Mhm.
So I mean, if everyone thinks that we need to lay them out verbatim, that's fine. But if somebody wanted to look them up, they could always refer to the references section where it's all cited, where they can find them. And I included hyperlinks in there as well.
I'm sorry.
Just saying in order to keep the length of the document from getting too long. So both the City of Hartford's establishing language and the pact style is in the references section.
Mm-hmm.
And there's hyperlinks there for those. And then those are references that go back to where information is cited within the report. But like I said, if people think that we need the long form at the bottom of the report, I don't have any problem keeping that.
My thought with that was sort of, yeah, the physical version of this report, if that, somebody wants to print this out and have it for themselves, in a physical form. Likewise, like, with the PDFs of the complaint forms and the PDFs of the reports, the chief's report, it would be a physical copy of reference documents. That was my thought with including them, but I'm open to this discussion on that.
This is Representative Richards. I think it's most important to include in full the things specific to Groton, like the civilian complaint form and things. I don't think it's as necessary for the city of Hartford information if the hyperlinks are there.
Okay.
Really feel strongly about one way or another. I just don't feel it's as necessary.
Understood. And that, yeah, that would also go to include the, I also had the Stonington Police Commission in there, that founding document. So yeah, I'm okay with, I'm good with like striking those out, just to kind of trim up on the whole document. And
I think it'd be okay to include a hyperlink for the city of Groton PACT also, since we didn't specifically say a PACT committee. It's just a reference at that point.
Okay. So Representative Rusk, let's see, I had that, I don't have a link to that direct resolution. That would be, I just had a Word document with that text in it and I dropped it in there.
So I would send it to you, except TVC blocks the city of Groton half the time. So I can't open it right now.
Odd.
But I'll try to get it to you.
Rep Gauthier here, if you use the hyperlink in the references, it's included in the resolution in full text, is included in the meeting minutes that's attached there. That's the only place I could find it on the city's website, but it's all there using that hyperlink.
All right. Okay, so it's in the references list of the main document.
Yes. Also, Representative Flax, to keep you from scrolling too much unnecessarily, on the left there's it looks like a little checklist. If you click that, it's like a bookmarks section, and if you scroll up a little bit on that, you should see references, and you can click it and it'll bring you right to that section. There you go.
All right, so any objections to striking the Stonington Police Commission document, the Hartford City CRB document, and the City of Groton resolution document text?
I agree.
Okay.
Agree.
All agreements. All right. It's coming out of there.
I'm reading.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the appendices. And since we started with the goals and recommendations, I think we should maybe circle back to the top of the document and work our way back down to the goals real quick.
Rep Gauthier, real quick before you start at the beginning again, were you deleting the resolution for the pact as well, or are we keeping that?
Yeah,
okay. Just didn't want to forget it.
Yep, thank you.
As much as I hate to say to suggest that we have another meeting. We've been doing this for 2 hours, and I think a lot of us have worked full days.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make the recommendation that we adjourn for today and finish this another night.
I agree.
Second.
Second.
All right.
Sure.
Any discussion?
Rep Gauthier, thank you everyone for your work tonight. I think we made a lot of progress, and I think we should be wrapping this up very soon. So thank you, everyone.
I agree. Thank you, everyone. And I'm very excited that we all could come to an agreement. I think we all started with our own thoughts on this, and it's really nice to see everybody working together on this. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Agreed. All right, so just a quick conversation on when do we want to do the next meeting? Do we want to try to hustle it up and get it done like before the holiday, or do we want to bump it till after the holiday? I personally would rather try to get it done next week at the latest.
Next
Next
week,
week.
Wednesday is the day before Thanksgiving.
I know that's a tough one.
I'm gonna say no.
Yeah.
Maybe the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, but that would be about it.
Representative Gauthier, I'd like to get this wrapped up by next week as well.
Yeah.
Maybe if we can do another hour, maybe it would be.
Yeah, honestly, like I think the rest of the report should go fairly quickly. This is the most difficult part we had to do tonight, I think.
Think of it as practice for budget session.
Representative
Tuesday works for me as
Gauthier,
well.
All right, so should I?
Tuesday works.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying Representative Gauthier, just saying Tuesday works for me as
Okay.
I could do Tuesday. This is Representative Rusk. I could do Tuesday early, but I have a 7 o'clock meeting. So could we do a 5 o'clock meeting maybe?
I could do 5 on Tuesday.
Yep,
That works for me.
Yep.
Okay, no objections
Okay.
to 5 o'clock on Tuesday? All right.
Nope.
Very well, 5 p.m. Tuesday. Next week, we'll close this thing out.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you
And
all.
everyone, thank you.
Yeah, you've been a great help.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody. Have a good night. Happy
Do
Thanksgiving.
we need to close the motion to adjourn?
Oh, right, yes. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Bye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we are adjourned at 8:05 p.m.
Thank
Good
you.
discussion. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
all.